What's up, YouTube? And today we're going back to the basics. The very first thing I was taught was how to change the oil in actually a 1989 Lincoln Town Car, which is very different to the way this is set up. But overall, changing the oil is pretty straightforward in almost every single vehicle. As I need oil changes in each vehicle, I'll make sure to show you guys step-by-step guide how to do it. It's pretty straightforward on each vehicle, but on this one right here, you'll find the oil filter is actually underneath this cap right here. And of course, the oil plug is on the bottom of the oil pan, and you're going to refill it in the top right there. But this pretty much translates to every vehicle. This, of course, is my second easiest engine to do an oil change on. I can actually reach down and actually grab the oil filter and take it right off. Drain the oil, fill it back up. This one's a little bit more difficult, but unlike, I think my 97 Corolla was really hard to get to. My 89 Supra, if you have a stock oil change, bring it somewhere. It's terrible. But this one here is located right here. A little bit harder to get to. You have the heat shield to contend with, but overall, not bad. This vehicle's oil filter is down below, right around here. But we're going to focus just on the BMW today. The tools you're really going to need, especially if you're doing it in your driveway, which in our situation is muddy and stuff, we're going to want a larger, you can have a metal plate or something like that. I just happen to have, bell bars. But you want something where you can put your jack on and jack it up without worrying about it sinking into the ground. So that works fantastic. You're going to need the same thing for your jack stands. The problem with jack stands, if you just set it like that, this will sink right down even with my own pressure. So you can use smaller weights like this, which fit fairly well, or the tried and true is keep a set of disc brakes around. You are going to need something to collect the oil. That's a phenomenal way of doing it. It makes pouring it back out very easy. With the BMW, you're going to need this BMW. You're going to need 7 quarts of oil, which I always go for something that's going to, protect the engine. Don't cheap out on the oil. It's not worth it. A great oil filter. Believe it or not, Napa makes a phenomenal oil filter. I would recommend them over the, what was it called there? Fram. I highly recommend the Napa Gold over Fram. I just happened to see a deal at Advance Auto, so I went with the Perlator and stayed away from the Fram. You are going to need a torque wrench and a 36 metric ratchet, or a socket for your ratchet. The other big issue is don't just pour all 7 quarts in there. Put 5 in, check, see where you're at. Put 6 in, see where you're at. It may say 7, and you may end up needing more. So it's pretty standard, but it's better to be safe than sorry. So yeah, let's just go ahead, dig right into this and get the oil changed in this. And what else? What else I was going to say? Oh, yeah. Don't worry. We are going to keep working on the Buick GS. It's just, I do need to also maintenance my vehicle so that they don't just die on me. We do have to start pulling apart the truck fairly shortly. And other than that, guys, it's time to get to work. Let's go. All right, so it's very simple. The first thing we're going to go ahead and do is search out our jack point. Our jack point on this happens to be right on that cross member. And there is supposed to be a little rubber, like, boot that you put your jack right underneath and lift it right up. I do recommend a larger jack than this guy, but buy a lot of Harbor Freight tools, and unfortunately my larger jack did just kind of kick the bucket. That brings me to a point. Do not rely on your jack. Make sure you put jack stands on underneath it. Just don't do it. It's not smart. So we'll go ahead and get this thing jacked up, and we'll start the next part, which is draining the oil. After replacing your support for your jack, go ahead and put your catch pan inside here. These are nice because if this falls into it, it doesn't disappear. Now, all you're going to want to do is start off with, make sure that the catch pan's open too to receive the oil. You're going to go ahead and remove this. Now, it has a little crush ring in there. Don't lose that. You should have gotten a replacement with the new oil filter. If it doesn't, it really should have, but we're going to go ahead and take that right out. And if you drop it in this thing, as you see, it won't go very far. It's very convenient. Now, I was driving the car earlier today, so the oil is at least a little bit warm, which helps it, you know, pour out of the engine. All right, and just taking it off. If you don't get it, if you get a little bit of oil in your hands, fine. Unfortunately, I'm kind of reaching underneath this car, so I can't be Jedi quick right now. But let's get back out from underneath here. You can see that's your plug for the bottom of your oil pan. Some of them have a little magnet, so if it has a little magnet and there's anything on it, go ahead and clear it. That doesn't mean your engine's totally shot, but definitely keep an eye on your oil quality. And like I said, don't lose that crush washer. I haven't opened up this yet, but it should have come with one, so I guess we'll see. I'm kind of worried that it may have fallen out because that's the kind of condition that I got the box in, so we'll see what happens. Oh, the other big thing is, don't just go and buy everything. Wait for it to go on sale, and you know you're going to do an oil change down the road, so get it beforehand. Otherwise, this would have cost me close to $100, and I think I paid all in $50, and that was with me buying an energy drink while I was there. So, oh, before I forget, come up here, take the top off. It helps it pour a little bit better, and you're going to be pouring stuff in there anyway. So we'll wait for this to drain out. It could take up to 5 minutes and maybe a little longer. So I'm gonna go have some coffee, come back, and we'll start finishing it all up. Now it's pretty straightforward. We're gonna wanna go ahead and remove this right here. Now, when you go put this back on, you are gonna have to use a torque wrench, but I don't recommend using torque wrenches to remove things. So go ahead and grab your appropriate socket, an extension, and either a breaker bar, not that you'll need the leverage off a breaker bar, or a ratchet. And we're just gonna go ahead and pop this off. Now, a little more oil may come out after you do this. So once it's cracked open, let the oil drain a little bit longer before closing it back up. Don't take this out until you have the oil pan or oil catch pan out, so that you can go ahead and transfer it right in there. Don't immediately do it though, because you want to look and make sure that there's no bearing glitter, if you will, on the filter. It's one of my favorite, I guess, benefits of these kind of filters, is you can definitely get a much better idea of how your engine's health is doing, and you know what you need to do to make sure that you don't have a catastrophic failure. So we'll let that sit for a little bit longer and come right back to it. So what comes in the box, which I'm actually very disappointed, this does not come with a new crush washer, not that I can find. So that means you're gonna have to reuse the old crush washer, and especially depending on how many times you've done that, that's very ill-advised. So I'm very disappointed in that particular brand not having a new crush washer. I know the last oil change I did, I actually got the BMW branded oil filter, and it was about the same price as this. Actually, I think it was about, oh, you know what? No, the BMW one was $10 less. This is like a $15 filter. But it comes with everything you need. At least this time it did come with this gasket right here, which you are definitely going to need to replace. Don't ever reuse the old one. All right, now we've let this thing drain a lot longer, so we're going to go ahead and pop the top of this off. And it's got a large tube that it's got to maneuver. Flip it upside down so you don't spill it everywhere, and go ahead and check to see if you see any glittery bearing looking things. And I find the best way to do that is set it down, see if this won't. Normally I have two hands. Here we go. Grab your phone and just put the flashlight onto it and check to see if you see anything sparkle. I mean, you're going to get glimpses of light bouncing back at you, but that should just be the droplets that have kind of sit on the surface, like the air bubbles. And I don't see anything wrong with this oil. So we're going to go ahead and finish the oil change. So this is just about after you would have changed out the old crush bearing with the new crush washer with the new crush washer. And unfortunately, like I said, this kit didn't come with one. So we're just going to go ahead and put the original one back on. I only changed it 5,000 miles ago, so I have a feeling that we should be all right. But like I said earlier, if this is your 5th, 6th time doing an oil change, if you change it every 5,000 miles, you know, this crush washer would have been pretty well abused. Now, you're not going to be cranking this down with the might of all that is holy. You just want to make sure that she's tight. If you over tighten it, you stand to do a lot of damage to your oil pan, so don't over tighten it. And all it really needs is just a solid snug. No more than just solid snug. If you crush it too far, you're going to do yourself a real disfavor. So once that's all together and you know that's nice and snug, don't forget to put it in. That would be very bad. We're going to go ahead and close up this thing right here so we don't accidentally spill any on the way out. There should be a little top right there. Slides right into place. And then you can return this oil back to where you bought it. I don't know, New York State, they have to take it back. So, and I know a lot of people use it for heating oil. So, and they generally pay companies for it. So, you know, this should be easy enough to get rid of. Don't mix your antifreeze with it though, because you could really screw someone over if you do that. So the next thing, we're gonna go ahead and drop this. Once the car is dropped, we're gonna go ahead and fill her back up with oil. Actually, sorry, change the oil filter, then fill her back up with oil. Now that we have the oil plug back in the bottom and it's snug, we're going to go ahead, we're going to take these off. Now, the reason why I had these on is because I'm working on, you know, very dirty ground, as it is a fact, a gravel driveway. Wow, words are hard today. And I don't want to get all that in the new filter, God forbid. So we're going to go ahead and bring this over to the catch pan, remove it, and we'll start getting this all together for the next half. Now you may be tempted to just leave this old gasket on here. This gasket has 5,000 miles on it, and it still has a little bit of spring to it. But let me show you something. This was the same color. I'm gonna set this down right here. This was the same color as this right here when I put it in. Now, if you can tell, this is very round. This one has actually been flattened. So not only was it torqued down, which causes a little bit of flatness, but it got hot. So don't skip the step, replace it. You can get little gasket pullers, they're like little pins almost, or if you have an old screwdriver that's nice and skinny, that works as well. It goes right back on fairly easily. Almost grabbed the wrong thing there. It goes on fairly easily. And I would recommend just putting a little bit of oil on the outside of this when you put it back on. I mean, you almost have the ability of just taking the oil that's on here and just, you know, get it a little bit loose. Not loose, but covered. That's the word I'm looking for. Then you're going to want to take this, and some of these go in a specific direction. This one, you just slide her on, and she's good to go. Make sure she is seated correctly. Once it is seated, we're going to go ahead and slide it back in there. We're going to go ahead, hand tight the thing first, and once it's hand tight, this one actually says it right on it. It is, I think, 20 Newton meters. 25 Newton meters. So we're going to torque this down to 25 Newton meters. We're just going to get at least in there first. And once it stops, don't go any further until you get your torque wrench. All right, once this is hand tight, or tightened down a little bit with this thing right here, just so that the gasket's down and you're not putting too much on here, you're going to bring this to 25 Newton meters or 18 foot-pounds. We're going to make sure we lock that. And then, just going to go ahead and tighten her up. Once you hear the click, don't keep going. We're good. That's all you needed. The gasket will hold, and we're all set. All we have to do is finish with the oil. Now that we have all the oil back in, we checked the levels. We're going to go ahead and close her back up. We're going to leave the hood open. We're going to check for leaks after we start it up. Now that we have the engine on, we're going to let it run until we hit the operational temperature, and we're going to shut her back off. When that happens, we wait about 5-10 minutes, double check the oil levels and make sure we're all right. And for now, it's just sit, wait, and make sure there's no leaks. That's getting back to basics. I'm going to try getting more episodes like this out every week, mostly because I have a lot to catch up on. That needs an oil change. That needs an oil change. That engine's going in there. So if you like the content, remember, hit that subscribe button. It helps out greatly. If you like this episode, hit that thumbs up. And the last thing I have to say is make sure you have all your tools accounted for. Can't tell you how many times I've driven down the road and then had to do the walk. And 9 times out of 10, you'll never see that tool again. So make sure they're all accounted for. You don't want to go replacing tools. So learn from my mistake. Or I should say, ask me how I know, or I don't know, whatever. Find all your tools and make sure they're all accounted for. Till the next episode, guys, I'm going to get back onto the Buick's frame because I want to get it over to Bill's this week, if not this week, next week, and get this thing moving forward. So you have yourselves a wonderful night. And if I don't see you guys until the next time, Happy New Year's.